Mr. President, our partnership is on the right track. Cooperation in areas such as justice and security continues.
For years, Africa has heard the speeches: Pan-African unity, African integration, free movement, intra-African trade. But too often, those words never leave the podium. While headlines across parts of the continent are dominated by anti-immigrant tensions, burned foreign-owned businesses, and political division, two African presidents quietly sat down and signed the future. On May 6, 2026, President Paul Kagame landed in Gaborone. President Duma Boko himself received him. No middlemen. No symbolic handshakes for cameras. No empty summit rhetoric. Head of state to head of state. And what followed was not diplomacy for show. It was diplomacy with structure, deadlines, and measurable goals. Because before the presidents even met, technical teams from both countries had already spent 2 full days negotiating the details. Not slogans, not hashtags. Policy. Then came the outcome. 6 agreements, signed, finalized. A visa abolition agreement for all passport holders between both countries. A double taxation avoidance agreement designed to make cross-border business easier and more profitable. A bilateral air services agreement to improve direct connectivity. A health cooperation memorandum of understanding. A trade and investment MOU, and an institutional partnership between the Botswana Investment and Trade Center and the Rwanda Development Board. But what makes this different is not just the agreements themselves. It's the seriousness behind them. Both governments reportedly agreed on a 3-month timeline to conclude outstanding matters, alongside a biannual review mechanism to measure progress and enforce accountability. Think about that carefully. Deadlines, checkpoints, reviews. That is governance. That is statecraft. That is what leadership looks like when governments actually intend to deliver results instead of applause lines. And the sectors they are targeting could reshape regional cooperation in East and Southern Africa. Digital trade, tourism, transport connectivity, livestock vaccination systems, diamond value addition. This is strategic alignment. Rwanda brings technological ambition, institutional efficiency, and a rapidly expanding innovation ecosystem. Botswana brings resource stability, financial credibility, and one of Africa's strongest records in resource governance. Together, they are not merely exchanging trade deals. They are building infrastructure for long-term African cooperation. And perhaps the most important part of this entire story is this: no foreign power brokered these negotiations. No Western government opened the door. No former colonial authority supervised the process. No IMF condition forced these signatures. 2 African nations identified mutual interests, sat down, negotiated, and signed agreements that directly benefit Africans. Because at a time South Africa is becoming increasingly hostile toward fellow Africans over immigration and economic frustration, Botswana and Rwanda are moving in the opposite direction. They are removing barriers, opening borders, expanding cooperation, and proving that African unity is possible when leadership is driven by strategy instead of politics. This is what Pan-Africanism looks like when it stops being a speech and becomes policy. Signed documents, enforceable timelines, real cooperation. And maybe that is the bigger lesson here. Africa does not lack resources. Africa does not lack talent. What Africa often lacks is coordination, political discipline, and long-term execution. Because history rarely announces itself loudly at first. Sometimes it begins quietly, with 2 presidents, 6 agreements, and a continent slowly choosing integration over division. This is the kind of story we cover here at Kann Media Group. Not just the crises, not just the conflicts, but the African decisions, partnerships, and turning points that could redefine the continent's future. If you believe Africa's future will be built through cooperation, strong institutions, and visionary leadership, then subscribe to Kann Media Group, like this video, and share it across the continent, because the Africa that works must be seen